Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live. Hi, good evening. Again, my name is Jay Rothman, and I am the host of the show. I'd like to introduce my friends and co-hosts. Evis Love Heath, the man of the land from down under. He calls Australia home. Welcome to the studio and show, Evis Love.
Thanks for having me, as always, brothers. And we've got a sister in this evening, so looking forward to diving in deep with my brothers and sister tonight on at Real Men Real Talk Live.
Beautiful. We have Josh Richard coming in from the Santa Monica part of Southern California. Welcome to the studio, Josh.
Always so grateful to be here. Love you guys.
And of course, we have Mr. Jeff Fastano coming in from Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. Looking forward to this tonight. It's going to be a interesting.
As we wait for some of our viewers to jump on and join us this evening, I'd like to welcome our viewers and listeners. If you hear something that you like or love, with love, gently touch your love button on your monitor, that is, and let us know, light us up. I'm excited about tonight's show as we wait for our viewers to join us. Let us know where you're coming in from, what city and state or country. If you're coming in from overseas, love to know where home is for you. And if anything should pop for you, any questions or comments, please share them in your comment feed, and we'll do our best to acknowledge you and answer any questions that you come up. For tonight's show, I'm really excited. It is a special edition show. It's been some time, a number of months that we've had a guest in the studio. And this evening, we invited a special guest in. Her name is Ozzie Osborne, Queen Ozzie, that is. She is a life and relationship coach and who likes to work with men. And so what I'd like to do is bring Queen Ozzie into the studio, welcome her, and then we're going to jump right into the topic that I'll be sharing in a moment here. Welcome.
Thank you for the lovely welcome.
You're welcome. You know, it's not every day that a Queen Ozzie gets to join Real Men, Real Talk Live in the studio. So we are honored and humbled to actually have you join us this evening. Tonight's topic is a hot one. It's all about do nice guys finish last? We've all heard that statement at some time in our life, and most likely our younger years. But underneath do nice guys finish last, I've got some questions that I'm hopeful that we will dive into tonight. Here are a few of them. Why are some women attracted to the bad guys as opposed to the nice guys? Where a woman is in her life cycle and emotional development may play into her attraction to the nice guy or the bad boy. How do we play out our dad's patterns in attracting women? And how do women play out their mom's patterns in attracting men? What about at the workplace, at the office, or in career? Do nice guys finish last in career and business? If so, why? And why do some guys only have women friends and unable to score and get her as his girlfriend? And last but not least, how do our earlier childhood experiences play into the people we are attracted to and pick as mates? And so with that, I'm going to invite, ever since you are right next to me in a hot seat there, I'm going to invite you to open us up this evening and kind of set the stage for this conversation.
Thanks, my brother Jay. And again, thanks for our guest tonight, Ozzie. Thanks for coming on board, sister. And looking forward, we've actually been talking about this at Real Men Real Talk Live and finally getting that beautiful feminine energy on here. And what a absolute perfect show to be doing it here on Real Men Real Talk Live. Why does the nice guy finish last? For me, does the nice guy finish last? But is it just okay that the nice guy actually finishes? Either way. Now, one other thing that you dropped in there, Jay, that I didn't hear was what about this particular relationship that many of us, I'll put my hand up, man, this mother-son relationship as well, that may have affected us being the nice guy in the relationship that would form within our circles. You know, what is that relationship that we as young men growing up, you know, really conveyed out there in the world for this beautiful feminine energy that's been influenced by the mother relationship, that's been influenced by the auntie's relationship, that's been influenced maybe by the sister relationship. So we go into this world as men, and a lot of the stuff that we start to play out, we've talked about this in previous shows, diving deep, we go in unconscious patterns. We start playing out behaviors that really model from our childhood beginnings. And one thing for me is that, man, I was that nice guy. I became in the friend zone. I wasn't the one that I was able to close. I was wondering why. Why was all my brothers around me getting the results and I wasn't? Was it maybe a sense of worth? Maybe was it a sense of value? Was it all the above? Look, I'm looking forward to diving in deep on a Real Men Real Talk Live. And again, sister, thanks for jumping on the show with us.
You know, it's as I said earlier in the intros, it's been a while since we've invited a special guest in. The reason that we invited Queen Ozzie in is because we really wanted to invite one of our female viewers or experts in the field of love and relationships to really represent the female in this conversation tonight. And so what I'd like to do, Queen Ozzie, is really just ask you this one question, which is, in your own life, well, before we go there, what's the difference between the nice guy and a bad boy from your own perspective and experience?
I'm so happy you asked me that. From my own experience, it's important for us to define what a nice guy is and what a nice guy isn't, right? A nice guy is someone who is appeasing, someone who is always there for you, someone who is not a lot of boundaries, right? That's what a nice guy kind of shows up anytime you want him. Whereas a bad guy, you know, it's got a little more grit and maybe a little bit more of this, a part of him that's showing a lot more confidence, and that's very attractive to the woman. So that, I would say that would be the difference for me between a nice guy or what we call a nice guy and what we call a bad guy. Women want nice men. It's not that we don't want you with nice men, but we're attracted to the part of you that's confident, and the bad guy often exudes that. And so I think that's why there's this conversation that we have about nice guy, bad guy.
And now, Ozzie, have you dated both?
I've dated both, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
And why?
Well, I was
Putting you on the spot, Ozzie. Putting you on the spot.
Oh, no.
I know, right?
I'll get it all out. The bad guy for me was almost like there's a part of me that felt like, okay, maybe I could change him. Like maybe I could turn him into somewhat of a nice guy, right? And there's also another part of me that felt that I didn't value myself enough, and I thought that it's okay to be treated this way, that I couldn't get any better. The nice guy I dated always felt a little maybe too nice and too soft for me, a little bit more on the feminine side, and that the attraction just wasn't there for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're looking at and trying to discern here is the healthy aspects of all of this. The healthy aspects, like we spoke about in our production meeting, the difference between the wounded nice guy or the authentic nice guy coming from your heart space. Mm-hmm. Because to me, being the poster boy for the nice guy, the unhealthy nice guy, is giving myself up, taking care of others people's needs, not even having any needs or boundaries, like you said, Ozzie, no boundaries for myself, totally disregarding anything about myself, taking care of someone else in order to be loved with an attachment. Mm-hmm. It's not even authentic. So what we want to get to is the place where we are all inherently nice. So we want to get to that healthy part where we are just being who we are. And in the beingness of who we are, there is that confidence because, as Evis just brought up, we honor and value ourselves, and we've learned to do that. Therefore, when we connect with someone in a relationship, there's a balance of giving and receiving because both people know exactly what that is.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. And Jeff, I mean, I was the poster boy for the nice guy as well. And, you know, for me, it was, I found my value in that. You know, I found my value in helping others and being needed and feeling, you know, that feeling desired. And so, yeah, I mean, having your value tied up in it, it makes it to where it's not authentic. I mean, you're not in a genuine connection if you're needing something in return. And mine was coming from a place of need.
How'd that work out for you, Josh, in your relationships?
Not very well. Well, and two, when you end up just giving to get back, I mean, to get back that, you know, somebody needing you, I think what I ended up doing, and we talked about this in past episodes, was I started keeping score. And I started going, wow, you know, I'm doing all of these things. I'm doing all of this. Why am I not getting any of that back? And it's because it was coming from a place of lack for me, that, you know, I was over giving, but then keeping tabs. So how is that healthy? And there's a whole slew of problems in there. So yes, in my out of balance self, the nice guy hurt me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Josh. That's your truth. Now, let me ask you this. Did you ever flip the switch?
How so? You mean embrace the masculine?
Okay, yeah. Or be the bad guy. Did you ever get sick and tired of feeling like you were losing in the game of keeping score and it wasn't working for you? So did you flip the switch to be a bad guy at any point?
I wouldn't say I flipped the switch to be a bad guy, but Ozzie brought up a key point, and I think we were all gonna go to this anyways, was the confidence. Having that self-confidence, and through my awakening journey, I of course sort of owned myself, and that brought on confidence. And that confidence brought on, you know, just being able to talk to women, or, you know, put myself in situations that I wouldn't have thought I was capable of before. And so, yeah, Oz, you brought up confidence is huge. And I know that that's what you ladies love to see. And when we start talking about the business side too, it plays into that as well. But confidence is massive.
You know, I flipped this. Oh, sorry, Ozzie. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and to that point, why confidence is important for us as women. It's important for us to feel safe in relationships. So in a relationship with a masculine, the confidence and the sturdiness is important for our safety and for us to have this trustability with you. So that's why the confidence is important. And anyone that's not in their confidence or putting themselves first and taking care of themselves in their masculine is it's unattractive. I don't trust that you're going to take care of me if something happens to the world, if you're on your own in your own mess.
Ev, let me ask you this, Ev, because you've been so quiet. You've been such a good listener tonight, which, of course, I believe women love in a man. But again, at the same time, there is a point where they want to hear us speak too. But here's the question, Ev. Were you the good guy or the bad guy in your younger years?
Oh, you're calling me out, Jay. Calling me out there, brother.
I'm going with both.
Real men, real talk. I was straight down the center. You saw a bit of bad in me, and you saw a bit of the good. And this is why it's so important, what Ozzie mentioned. How do we define bad? Like, what is the bad masculine out there? You know, I've talked in this in previous shows, and I've been happy to open up that I never really had that role model of the healthy masculine within my life.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started to see some of those unhealthy behaviors, habits start to play out within my life, I had to check myself, man. I had to check myself and become aware of what I was doing, not only to myself, but most importantly, those around me. So I would have to say personally, Jay, I've been down the center because I've had the balance of both sides. I've seen both worlds. But from that, the man you see here today has been able to mold himself into what I feel that I should be presenting myself to the world, not only to the people around me, but also to thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hear that. That's for sure.
Ev, do you think your ex-girlfriends would have given you the same answer?
I can't speak on them, Jay. I can't speak on them.
Well, wait a
But,
minute.
you know,
Wait a minute. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I
no,
think
you
Queen
go.
Ozzy's going to give an answer too for that one.
I just said probably not.
Why? Why do you think that?
Well, I think the feminine tends to have their own interpretation of why the man, shows up the way they do. So I would imagine that they must have had a different account than what you might have thought.
Perhaps a different experience. Yeah.
Different experience. Yeah.
Or if they've done work on themselves after that experience, took that experience and looked at it and said, wow, how did I call that experience into my life? What do I need to do? What do I need to learn from that experience? And then eventually down the road, look at Evis. I'll use Evis as, oh, well, he was just at that point in his life too. And that's the realization.
And there we go, Jeff. I mean, we always talk about we're living in that beautiful house of mirrors at the moment.
Right.
And, the brothers that I'm helping on their journey at the moment, a lot of them are single, separated, or divorced. So I help rebuild and reclaim their kingdom. We're looking at the other scale here. Doesn't a masculine bad by putting a lot of his focus, attention on thyself to rebuild himself to come back out here in the world. So my big question to you, Jay, in the green room the other day at the meeting, you basically paraphrased me here too, brother. Basically, by looking at the way I was, said, as what you may seem like a bad boy, has that affected your life?
All right. So answer the question.
And that's what I'm asking, Jay. Why is it to you? What is a bad boy?
Right. It's all an interpretation of based on something we read, something we saw in a
100%.
movie, in a book.
100%.
Yeah, it's just another label. But really, what it comes down to, really, if we want to just break it down in this moment, it just comes down to behavior. It just
100%.
comes down to how do we as men show up relationally in all of our relationships, not just one that we're dating or in a monogamous relationship with, but in all of our relationships with men and women. How are we showing up? I've asked each one of you how you showed up. Jeff, I think you said you were one of the bad boys at one point in your life, correct?
I'm pleading the fifth.
Okay. All right. Well,
No. I was going to say, when you asked Josh, did you ever go to flip the other side? The answer for me is yes, because I got so tired of being this nice guy. And I'll preface all this. All of this is through wounding. So my nice guy stuff was all through my wounding. The only way I'm going to be loved is if I'm the nice guy. Take care of your needs. Give myself up. Show you that this is how I need to be loved. And then after a while, I looked at that and I said, this is crazy. So being still unhealthy, I flipped the switch and went to another healthy part of being the antithesis or the opposite of that. And that's where I went with it for a while until I realized all of it is just one huge mask from my not valuing, honoring, and loving myself.
Mm.
I did not know who I was. I did not know how to love myself. I did not know what my value was. So both were masks and behaviors that simply masked and covered up all of my wounds and my fears about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Thanks for sharing that, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bad boy, and I was one for a little while, and I'm not sure if you want to find those women in my life, but what they think about me now. But I know guys who are like that, and I'll tell you what, underneath all of that were frightened guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd like to share. Jazz Star says, from my experience, bad boys can reform. True narcissists, another label, cannot. They will never take accountability for their actions. It will ruin the facade too much for them. Jazz, thank you for sharing that. I'll kind of just share my truth. When I was a teenager and I had my first girlfriend, she dumped me, and it really hurt me. It was the first girl, my first crush, my first intimate relationship. Not intimate emotionally, but on a sexual level, okay, as a young teen. And the pain for me felt so excruciating. First time that I made an agreement with myself that I didn't ever want to be on a receiving end of being dumped, being broken up with. And so I made a conscious decision that I would do whatever it took to avoid being the one to be dumped.
Mm.
And what ended up happening, I didn't realize this, I didn't know it until many, 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 many years, moons later, decades later, that I actually became a bully towards women because not that I was abusive, but I wasn't a nice guy. I was the bad boy in my 20s, from the time I was in college all the way till I got married. And what I know today is that it didn't serve me, but that was my ego's smartest way of protecting me. That was an ego move. It came from my mind because my heart was broken. And I agree with Jazz Star when she says bad boys can be reformed, because that's how I no longer choose to show up in my relationships today. Because what I learned is that I was holding on to that all those years, all those decades, from the time I was 15 years old, all the way till I was 54 years old. And even in my relationships as the adult, I still was the bad boy. I lacked empathy, compassion, love, and kindness for others. I didn't have that capacity because I was fearful of being hurt, being let down. And I wanted to avoid that. But the beautiful thing is there's hope, because if I could do it, you could do it. But it's not a switch. You just can't. It's not like that light switch you just flip on and off. It's simple, not easy. You've heard me say that one before, for a good reason. It takes commitment, and it takes practice, and it takes willing to look at some of those shadows and wounds and pivotal moments that impacted your life in your younger years that brought you to that space and place in your relationship. So, Queen Ozzie, what do you make of all that? Is this making any sense to you, coming in, receiving it from a man?
So much. I have a story to share. And I too agree with her in that bad boys absolutely can reform. I was at a bar, and a very good looking, very overly confident man, somewhat on the aggressive side, approached me. And as he approached me, I could tell he was using language from, you've all heard of The Game.
Sorry,
yeah.
Excuse me for laughing.
No, it's fine. He had no idea who he was speaking with. Obviously, I know The Game. Anyway. And so I picked up on the language, and I allowed him to talk to me. And as he's talking, I I looked him in the eye and I put my hand on his heart and I said, stop. You don't need to have this mask on. I feel your heart. You don't need to be someone that you're not. And he literally sat down and started to weep. And so when you bring up the point of the nice guy and the bad guy as a mask, it absolutely is. It masks who you truly are, because you don't feel that you're either worthy, that you're enough. And most likely, most often, it comes from a very, very old wound that you haven't tended to.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I believe in the work. I also believe, one last thing I wanted to add to this is that it also takes women understanding that and not letting those guys, the bad guys, continue to be bad guys, and having space for them to take the mask off and reveal themselves.
So Ozzie, thanks for sharing that. And I've got just a bit of a question for your sister. I brought it up in the green room in the production meeting through the week, and one of my questions was, okay, we're starting to understand, I guess, from a physiological point of view, that hormones really do play a part within our, interaction with the opposing sex. From a woman's perspective, could you, help us men here at Real Men Real Talk get a better understanding on maybe where it could really affect a woman in whether she goes with a good or the nice guy against or the bad guy, and vice versa, depending on where she is on her life cycle? So I'm talking about, we're talking about our early years. We may have been perceived as the bad boy, hormones going 100 miles an hour. But on the other side of that spectrum as well, Ozzie, is that the same for the feminine energy?
Can you expand on that a little bit?
So from 18 to 23, 24, 25, look, some beautiful females out there today, could probably even extend that more. Let's be honest. Let's go with some talk here, that there are females out there that are just looking for sex.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I would also venture to say that's a mask as well, using sexuality, using what they know they have a lot of power with, to gain something out of it. I don't know if it necessarily is. I don't know if the gains is the sex as much as it is more about either power or maybe, again, not feeling worthy enough to honor their bodies and share their bodies with someone else. Mm-hmm. It's a kind of a tough question for me to answer.
I didn't want to put you on the spot there, Ozzie.
No, it's a great question. And I know a lot of women that opt for that. In fact, I did a little experiment with myself, because in my mind, I always thought that sleeping with a man before you know him is incomprehensible. It was something that was bad. And so I never allowed myself the freedom to experience that. Mm-hmm. And so until I realized I had many friends who were just sleeping with men. They were very clear that their intention was not to have a relationship, but to have sex. And so for me, I thought, well, I'll try it. Why not? And so I changed the narrative and I said, I get to be honored as a queen, and I'm going to find someone who's wanting to have an agreement. And so I found a guy and we had an agreement. And we said, what if we just, all we engage in is sex? We won't have an actual relationship other than the sexual relationship. And sure enough, it lasted for a little bit, and it was fun because there were no expectations, and it served its purpose, and the experiment was lovely. Thank you.
What did you learn from that, Ozzie, if I may ask? What did you learn from your own experiment?
That it's not necessarily a bad or a good thing to sleep with a man if you make a conscious choice and you have an agreement. For me, it's all about having an agreement and being aligned. Because we were aligned, we ended up having a very great experience. If we weren't aligned, if it was a one-night stand and we just didn't really know each other, it was we were fumbling around, it might not have been such a great experience. But this in particular, what I learned and took from was that it's not a bad thing, as long as you, again, agree to be aligned.
And everybody's expectations are the same, because it's like, yeah, I mean, that's that's where we get hurt, right? Is when someone's expectations are out of alignment with ours, or we don't express them well enough or something like that. And yeah. But that's beautiful that you change the narrative. And that's, what we talk about a lot too, is that we can change our stories. And we can, create new stories. We don't have to stay stuck in the old.
Yeah. Quite a while ago, back in my 20s, I met a woman who I really liked. And I really like you and this and that. And I remember she turned to me and said, Jeff, I like you too, but I just want to have sex with you. I don't want a relationship. And the tables were turned. And I went, whoa. And I wound up not doing it. I wound up not doing that for whatever reason, because that's all she wanted from me. And I wasn't judging her or anything like that. And what was cool about it, she was that honest. But she said, Jeff, I like you. You're nice, but I just want to have sex with you. She didn't put it that way, but that's what she meant.
How'd that work out for you, Jeff?
I didn't even go there.
Okay.
I did not go there for whatever reason. I was in my mid-20s. I just remember that as Ozzie was saying that, I went, oh. I remember that woman being that upfront. She was around the same age, 24, 25, 26 or something like that. And that's all she wanted with me.
I love what Jillian Bowie says here. She says, the stories are exactly that, stories. It's when we get beneath the story that we find the authentic heart.
Beautiful.
I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, Ozzie, and you talk about love. At the heart space versus the mind space. You talk about rising up in your program. Tell us a little bit more what that means to you. What does that mean? Tell us more. Heart versus the mind in relationships.
Well, thank you for asking. We as human beings are conditioned to come from here, and our minds are constantly in operation, and we go, and we learn, and we sort of figure out how to do the hows, and we figure out how to be in the do, right? And we are very calculating, and we're very, very much in our heads. And what happens with that is our brains are designed to predict, and in order for us to know if we're going to survive any experience. And so when our brains are constantly wanting to predict, we're constantly in this state of fight or flight. We're not really living in the moment. We're not grounded. We're not centered. And so oftentimes one of the therapies or my modality that I choose to practice with my clients is heart-centered. So oftentimes I'll ask them a question and they'll answer, and you see them thinking that their eyes kind of go up and go, and they go in through their minds and they're looking for the right answer, right? We're looking for that perfection, that exact answer, because if I give that person the exact answer, that person is going to like me, or that person is going to accept me. And it feeds into the little part of you that's really wanting love and connection. And so what I then do is I ask the same question. I ask them to close their eyes, and I ask them to put their hands on their hearts. And then I ask the same question. And then I ask them, what is your truth in this very moment? Mm-hmm. And I ask that question. Oftentimes they'll either have emotions come up, or they either freeze, and then I really ground them, or they'll come up with whatever comes up. And oftentimes what comes up is either unnatural to them or uncomfortable. They didn't anticipate that answer, but it usually is their truth. And so for me, learning how to speak your truth, men and women, is extremely important for us to be unmasked and actually form connections that are healthy and are thriving.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to just bring to all of our attention here in the studio that a couple of our viewers have communicated in a very vulnerable way in this moment. This topic makes me feel stirred up and slightly uncomfortable. There is great opportunities here for my growth, and then a validation, and another affirmation from Carrie Crary coming in. says, "Me too. I am feeling agitated by it." Yeah, tell us more. What's coming up? Why the agitation? What is it? Because a lot of times we get into these show topics, and it actually goes the other way. There's actually people get turned on or get lit up, and in a very stimulated way. But here we're actually, there's some stimulation going on. It's not, there's some unhealthy, or not unhealthy, but some feelings that are agitating as the words being described. Ev, what do you make of that? What do you think? Why do you think this is possibly happening right now in this moment?
Beautiful, bro. Look, I think we just got to go back to that E word, don't we? This is called emotional intelligence. We're all really, really shaping up into our best, higher self. And through this emotional intelligence, where we're able to start balancing these masculine and feminine energies, and let's just get it real. We don't have to look out anymore. And why some of these sisters may be getting agitated, and what sorry for some of the other words they may be saying, is because we're allowing some of these emotions that may have been blocked in time to finally come to the surface. And like Ozzie mentioned, for far too long on this planet, we've been coming up from here. So as we start to come down here, and this heart space starts to open in this beautiful 2020, the year of plenty, we start to voice out the bridge. It's the throat chakra. So now we can express and allow this to come to the surface.
And also too, I mean, during my awakening journey, and when I finally started to allow myself to feel, is emotions do come up, and emotions are like a river. They have to flow. And when you try and dam it up and block it down, and that's what we're so used to, is like, I don't have time in my life to deal with this right now, so I stuff it down. Oh, I'll deal with that later. I stuff it down. So our knee-jerk reaction at first is feel emotion that's uncomfortable, stuff it down. What we need to, or what we can get into the habit of, is letting it flow through you. It is not labeling. It's just emotions. We have good ones and we have uncomfortable ones, and actually letting the uncomfortable ones flow gets them out, and we can finally let it go. And so, sometimes there are triggering moments in life that bring up discomfort, but I always remind myself to honor the feeling, and that it's a river, let it flow. And the more we can just allow it to move, that energy wants to move constantly. The more we can allow it to move, the less stuck it's going to be.
There you go, brother. Love that, Josh. Love that, man.
All our feelings have energy attached to them. So what's happening right now, we must be speaking, or right now could be mirrors for everybody watching. And what we're speaking is simply looking into a mirror and saying what is being triggered inside of me that they're talking about right now. And if that's the case, we're doing our job right now.
Beautiful.
What we're doing is what we're speaking about may be triggering something inside of everyone. And the key, as Josh said, is to begin to allow that energy to flow. Try to stay out of your mind what is being triggered, and simply be in being triggered, and allow the energy to flow, because with our feelings, energy is attached to all of our feelings. So it's about allowing that energy to move with your being triggered. Then it eventually you'll see. You might not get it right now, but if you just allow the energy to flow, allow yourself to feel, don't ask yourself, why am I being triggered? Be triggered, be in the moment, have your feelings, let the energy flow eventually, because that is the key to any therapist, anybody that's working with you, wants to get you to this place of triggering something inside of you, to get that memory, to get that wound, to get that feeling, get those emotions up so you can clear them, get to the other side of them, be in that, the authenticity of those emotions, and then you go into the mental body and then you will find out what was triggered. But you have to let yourself feel, be triggered, and let that energy move.
What, Jeff, thank you for sharing that. Josh, hold one sec. What I'd like to do is just invite the five of us and all of our viewers and listeners in this moment. Let's all just close our eyes and let's just take a nice deep breath in and hold it. Let it out. On a second breath in, I'd like you to really try to reach your heart or your soul space. Just allow yourself to go there and feel it and honor it. And then let the breath out. All right. Thank you for giving me permission to lead that spontaneous breath moment, because something that I didn't know when I was younger is even in these moments that are uncomfortable for us or that bring to the surface some emotions, we can give ourselves permission today to take a time out. We could give ourselves permission, even in the middle of maybe a disagreement with a loved one, to offer, let's just take a nice deep breath. Let's just like pause. Now, it's a healthier way for us to show up and be able to really get in touch with what we're feeling and give ourselves permission to kind of bring it down a little bit, calm it down. It's a new way to live. Donna K. Rivera said earlier in the show, she, if I may paraphrase you, because I'm not going to go back to the comment, but in paraphrase, she said, I've always been with the bad boys. I'd like to ask you, Ozzie, why do you think that is? Why do you think it is that it's not just for Donna? There's millions and millions of women that have and still say the same experience, whether they were married to them or they dated them. They have the worst luck. I used to, when I was doing some 12-step work in my early part of my healing, my sponsor said, he called it a picker. He said, some of us just got a bad picker. that was his humor, and I loved him for that, and I loved him for his wisdom. But why is that, Ozzie? Why is it that we, some of us are not able to break the cycle or break the pattern or break the chain to that type of attraction in a partner that we're seeking? What do we have to do differently to break that cycle? That's the back end question for you too. So you got two
questions. So one, why do I attract bad guys? There are a few reasons. One can be that there might be a part of you that believes that that's what you deserve. It could be a father wound. It could be a mom wound. It could be, an unhealthy masculine wound will get you to attract people that will mirror to you what you feel you're worthy of. A second thing can be there might be a part of you that thinks that you can change a bad guy, and you could be the person to do it. There's some ego involved there. And then your second question, what was your second? Will you repeat your second question?
How do we break the chain of it? How do we break the cycle so that we could actually, those of us that have suffered in our bad pickers, how do we have a different experience with a happy ending, a different kind of ending?
I love the happy ending. So the bad picker is really about, again, first you get to recognize what the pattern is. You first have to acknowledge there's a pattern there. Once you recognize, okay, I see a pattern. I see that the kind of guys that I attract are either unavailable, they're aggressive, they're the bad guy, they're guys that are disconnected. When you recognize what that pattern is, and it's really about sitting with yourself and looking at all your relationships and doing an assessment. You could do that with your therapist or any practitioner that's willing to sit through with you. You could do it alone, where you journal about all your relationships and notice a commonality. You'll see a common thread throughout all your relationships. And then you get to decide, where do I want to go, right? I know where I've been. Where do I want to go? What does that relationship look like? And start to activate some visualization. Start to visualize what that relationship feels like. Start to visualize, we get taught to make lists. Here's what I want, and here's what I don't want. While that might be a little helpful, I think what works really, what works for me and my clients is really learning how to really visualize, but visualize it with your body. Really feel it. Feel that relationship as if it already is in existence for you. And for some of us that don't know what that feels like, right? There are a lot of people that are like, well, I don't know what a good relationship feels like. Well, you might sort of pick your mind a little bit and look at other relationships around you that make you kind of go, I wish I had that. And maybe they can model for you what that relationship can look like. And just start to open up that possibility, right? Open up that part of you that could be a little dreamy about it. And then once you have where you've been and where you want to go, now there's a bridge, right? And how do you cross that bridge? One step at a time. One step at a time. It could be maybe it's about you doing some self-worthiness work. Maybe it's about you going to a self-development workshop. Whatever it is, it's really about you. You attract, right? I attract what I see, right? The world and relationships that we're in is a perfect feedback for us as to what we feel about ourselves. They're just mirrors for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Ev, I want to ask you a question in this moment, which is that a lot of our desires and attraction of others, do you believe that it comes from how much of an influence did our own childhood where we witnessed how our dad treated mom or mom treated dad? And if there wasn't a mom and dad, but a boyfriend and a parent, where how much of that do you think impacts us as adults in picking or choosing, attracting our partners? And I ask you that question because I wonder how many people are even consciously aware that they are, in fact, picking one of their parents as their mates in a behavioral perspective. Everyone's shaking their head yes. So, Ev,
yeah, and great question as always. Great question as always, brother. And like we've mentioned this in previous shows, that trying to really understand, that a lot of this program that plays out through these unconscious patterns are from that early first 7 years of our childhood. So when that subconscious is programmed and we start to be aware that maybe we are playing out the role or seeking our mother out there in that divine feminine, or whether it's the sacred masculine from the feminine side, or whether we're actually seeking the other sex based on some trauma and wounding that may have played out in front of us as in our childhood.
Yeah.
So for me personally, like I said, I wasn't around the best behaviors that I saw from my father figure. And when I started to see that play out in my early teenagehood, then I had to check myself because it didn't feel right. I wasn't going around with a thought right, but it did not feel right to me. It wasn't not how I wanted to portray myself within the world around me.
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's our parents modeled for us, and many people, all of us, probably, I bet you all of us here, until we started working on ourselves, we dated our models. And mom and dad modeled to us what a relationship is when we saw it. Were we even modeled that a relationship can be pleasurable?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you definitely attract something that feels familiar to you. And I don't believe that it's in your consciousness. I believe it's in your subconscious. It's part of your programming, so much so that you don't even notice it until you start to do the work, until you pause and you start to go into the personal development work, until you start to assess yourself and wonder, get curious about who am I? And that was such a great question you asked, Jay. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
I think you asked that in the group.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
it goes
one of-
back
one of the
to
things-
it goes back to the brain as well, Ozzy, and you nailed it. The brain loves to predict, and so the brain feels comfortable even in negative or unsupportive relationships or patterns because it knows how that works, and it would rather be able to predict in a scenario that it understands than feel uncomfortable in a scenario that's new. Therein lies the rub, and that's why it is hard to get out of our old patterns, habits, and models that we grew up with. They're comfortable, and the brain likes them.
I love that, Josh. I just posted up here. Denise says we attract what we want, but when we consciously decide what we want, we attract that beautiful relationship. The key word there is consciously. I can't speak for you guys, but I'll speak for me. I was sleepwalking through so many of the choices I made in my life, with friendships, with relationships, with choices I made that didn't all serve me in a healthy way. Why? Because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how much of my younger years I was still carrying within my body, within my adult self. I had no idea. And unfortunately, I didn't start to pick it up until I had hit a rock bottom in life. I was out of time and answers. And I was just like, it's do or die. It's like, I can't continue to live my life like this. And my body was given out. It had affected me to that point. So, I share that because some of your viewers that may be relatively new to the program, our physical health will be affected over the long haul by our emotional, our mental health. Our mental health will impact our physical well-being. Our body can only sustain so much pain, so much trauma, so much cortisol being flooded through our body from fight or flight.
That's why it's called dis-ease.
Stuffing our emotions, stuffing our feelings, like we were talking about before, if you're triggered right now, allow those feelings to flow. Because of the energy attached to those feelings, if we cut it off and we start to stuff it in our physical body, which is exactly where that energy goes, that is the root cause of physical dis-ease, as Josh just said.
Yeah, beautiful.
We forget we have an emotional body.
Yep.
So we also forget that our body takes in data. And as it takes in data to assess our stability, to assess our safety, it then informs our minds to create a thought that then creates an action. And so it's important that we remember we have a body. And this is why I say, come to your heart, come into your body and just be there. And if there's trauma there and there's a trigger there, hold it. Hold it as if you're holding a baby that's precious. Hold it as something that is really needing your attention. And it's a part of you that's always there that you just get to love up, and you get to be your own wise parent so that you can care for that part so that you can feel whole, because we often feel very fragmented, very, very separate from everything and everyone. And so it's important that we recognize our emotional bodies, and our bodies wear that trauma. We walk around with that trauma everywhere, and we bring it to relationships, and we bring it to spaces. And it's, and as you said, Jeff, I think you said that our emotions are energy, and so are our thoughts. Yep. And so all that energy, imagine you're creating disease in your body, but again, remember, energy attracts like energy. We're then also passing that energy on to other people and creating other disease in the world. And here we are in a time 2020 where we're sort of paused, right? We're paused, and we see how much damage that has done.
Yeah. What I'd like to do before we jump into our final round of musical chairs this evening, we have special guest Queen Ozzie Osborne, who's going to play musical chairs with the four of us men. What I want to do is just take some time. There you go. It's not every day that a queen, like I said, gets to spend an hour plus with real men. Real Talk Live. So I want to take some time to kind of examine how are our careers impacted. Do nice guys finish last in the workplace, and especially in the younger years? What does it look like? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay, Josh, run with it.
Big fat yes.
Why do you say yes, Josh?
Oh, if I could go and talk to the younger me, holy shit.
Whoa, let's do it. You're here right now.
So-
Let's do it.
So yeah, I had my startup and I was dealing with a lot of fears. I had never I knew nothing about a software company, and we hired people to run it. And we of course had to go through rounds and rounds of funding. Software is very expensive, which meant pitching, which meant getting out there and trying to confidently talk about our ability to create something from scratch. And I wasn't 100% sure we could do it. And I think not believing in myself, not having that confidence that Ozzie talked about hurt me. Absolutely, in pitching to investors. And I saw people with dumber ideas and people with products that weren't as good or wouldn't help as many people as our product would. I saw them succeed and get hundreds of millions of dollars in investment and grow their companies over time and become a better product over time. And they weren't great in the beginning, but they had that confidence. And so I saw these people run past me as we were humbly trying to not over express our ability or not try and oversell what we could or couldn't do. And that hurt us. Yeah. And so, yes, 1,000% the confidence. And, we talked a bit about it in the Fake It Till You Make It as well, which is, own that energy, be it. And that you being that positive, we're expecting positive outcomes. Own that and feel that. And people around you feel that too. People want to jive with good energy, not some humble, meek, person who's understating themselves just to be polite or not to seem like a boastful, person. So it hurt me 1,000%.
All right, Josh. Here's the question for you then.
Here it comes.
What would you do differently today?
I would have gone out there knowing that I didn't know how to do software, but I am absolutely 1,000% capable of figuring it out. And I absolutely could have pulled it off. If I could tell younger me that.
It's a confidence thing is what you're just really talking about. It's not being a good guy versus a bad guy. It was just that in hindsight, you recognize today that you didn't come across as confident as you should have or could have. And that's what hurt you.
And I think, tied into that as well would be self-love, self-realization, we've talked about trusting ourselves. And so, yeah, there's a lot weaved in, but I didn't want to be seen as the asshole, the guy that was pitching confidently and Mr. Own the Room. And, I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to be seen as authentic. But I was also underselling myself. Okay.
I commend you. And I just want to take a moment here to honor you, Josh Richard, for being honest and truthful. Because there's a lot behind your experience of having gone through that. It's been a very costly financially as well as in other aspects of your life. But I love your honesty and I love your vulnerability. And I just love you, man. Thank you.
I love this space that we create. Seriously, it's so special.
How does it feel in this moment for you to just kind of having shared what you shared, going back one more time in this moment and to be present here with us in this moment? How does it feel for you?
You know what, Jay? I can't change the past, but I can 100% change the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Love
going into a huge project right now where all those same fears are coming up, but I am dancing with the universe. I am leaning into trust, surrender, like we talked about last week. And wow, it's a totally different experience.
Beautiful.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
I mean, I echo exactly what you're saying, and
We're so close, Jeff, I swear.
really, right? I mean, I see myself in you so much. I did it as well. I'm a photographer and pricing jobs, undervaluing myself, quoting prices just because I want the gig, but it was basically undervaluing myself totally, and I did it a lot.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. And the question I have for you, and which is going to be my answer, which will be totally different than why I'm asking the question, because we've been through this before. You wouldn't change a thing that you did, because we wouldn't know now that what we did was in our soul plan, so we can learn to be where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that what I did in life of giving myself away, taking care of the needs of my client before I even thought of mine, before I even thought about that I had rent to pay, was to take care of exactly what they need, undercut myself, which is undervaluing myself. But if I didn't do that and learn from that, I wouldn't be able to get to the place where I value and honor myself now, as Josh just said, for the future. So for anybody out there who hears this and starts beating themselves up of what they did in the past and thinking about the past, then indulging and sinking into the past and staying there, you can look at probably everybody here who has done that in one way, shape, or form, move out of it, come to the present. What do we learn? What do we learn through the pain and the suffering of it? And be in that place to know that all of that needed to happen so you can create an incredible future for yourself.
Beautiful. Love that, Jeff. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it's that time. We are over the hour. And before we go and jump into musical chairs, I'd like to just take one more moment to thank our viewers and listeners. If you enjoyed the podcast tonight, the show, please, please, please share it out in your community with your family and friends and loved ones. What we don't know is whose life we can touch tonight, whose life you can touch by sharing it out, that you may not even be aware they need to hear it. And I know that I get affirmations all the time. I receive them directly and indirectly. I got a few today that just touched my heart, brought me to tears in a moment of lives that we touch because we show up, because we, as real men, real talk, have the courage to just express and share what we have learned along the journey called life. And so please share it out. If you heard something you liked or love, let us know that as well. If you have been impacted by the show, please drop it in the comments or send us a message so that we know that we're on the right path. And if you ever have any topics that you'd like to see us jump into, send us a note on Messenger. A few of you have, and we'd love to explore all the different topics that men and women both need to hear. And so with that, musical chairs is where each one of us I'll give in 2 minutes to share either a tool, key principles to making a healthy change in your life relating to this topic, and or any closing thoughts that you took away from the show tonight. And so it's your turn when you are pulled up into next to me. And Queen Ozzie, by the way, you're invited to stay for musical chairs and participate if you'd like. It's been a serious topic, so this is a time for us to have a little fun and play. Are you ready to have some fun?
Yeah.
All right.
She's in. All right. Wow. All right. So let's see. We're gonna play a little bit differently tonight. Josh, Richard.
Oh, Mr. Rich is in the house.
Whoop, whoop.
So funny. I say I often sit in this hot seat and have no clue what's going to come out of my mouth. Trust and surrender. Wow. Thank you, guys, for asking your questions tonight. It's it's funny how much I get out of the show too, and sometimes just it's so funny what a question can do and what a question could bring up. And for me tonight, the reflecting on my past has just given me renewed hope for my future. And so thank you for asking that, Jay, and bringing that up, because it's nice to compare. We often life changes so slowly, and we, our work, our self-work happens slowly over time. Like you said, it's not a light switch. It's, it takes work and work and work. And so sometimes we're not called to compare so directly the past and the present. But you've done that for me tonight. And you've asked me to compare that. And in looking at the both, wow, I see the work and I see what's changed. And I'm very grateful for that. So thank
Beautiful,
you.
bro. Beautiful.
Thank you all for holding space.
Always. Thank you, Josh. Richard. All right.
Jeff.
Following Josh. Man, there was so much wonderful stuff. Ozzie, you were great. So great to have that energy flow here tonight. It felt amazing. Have your perspective and where you were coming from. I learned a lot. It was so refreshing. It was so refreshing having you here tonight.
How do you really feel, Jeff?
Refreshed. Actually, I do feel very refreshed in my life right now. I'm looking at the future because I've shifted so much in the last 4, 5, 6 months to where I'm now moving to a place of really honoring and valuing myself. And from what I heard tonight and thinking about this subject, bad boys, nice guy, to me, it all comes down to how deeply you honor and value and love yourself. When you get to that, it is a challenge to move into that mastery of self. If we're looking at all of this as a self-mastery course, so to speak, that we're on with our lives, mastering ourself, the bottom line of it all to me is honoring and valuing and loving ourselves. To move into that place of who am I? How do I feel about myself? What are my choices in the past? I probably made those choices out of a place of not honoring, valuing, and loving me, knowing that I have needs, knowing that I can set boundaries. It's really all about moving from the wounded child running our lives to the adult running our lives and making choices from a place of fully knowing who we are and why we're here. And it comes down to the beneath it all, loving, honoring, and valuing ourselves. How much does everybody out there love, honor, and value themselves?
Beautiful. Jeff Fasano, bringing it home one more time. My God. I think we're done, folks.
Yeah.
You guys are off the hook. I don't think we need well, we don't need it, but we want it. We desire it. I desire it. I'm just looking at some of these comments here. Carrie Crary says, yes, value yourself and your body. Scott Eisenman says, I love watching you guys. Amazing. I would love to thank each and every one of you. Jillian Bowie coming in from Scotland says, yes, Jeff, returning to ourself. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you, Jeff, for really framing tonight's show topic out so eloquently. I appreciate you tonight.
Well, I wanted to get something in before Evis and Ozzie blow us away.
Hey, Jeff, when you make that statement, how old are you feeling?
I'm totally my adult self because, oh yeah, I mean, I've learned so much from these shows, as Josh said. Listening to everybody, and I think we all bring our adult selves here. Because, folks, there is no competition between any of us here. There is a sixth, seventh, and eighth sense of us here that we just soak it all in because all of us come. And if we all could look at this in life, we are who we are. We have something important to say. And if we open our hearts to listen to others, others will listen to us.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jeff.
Keep going, Jeff Fasano. Right? Wow, man.
He's in flow. What the hell did you drink tonight? I want to know what you drink. Tell me after the show. Tell me in the post-production meeting room. Queen Ozzie, you are in a hot seat. It was not an easy decision to have you where to place you. But in the end, I just followed intuition. And so this is your time to shine. Put a pretty bow in the show for representing the females this evening. I want to, again, thank you for having the courage to accept our invitation to join us this evening. It's not always easy, especially to step into a studio representing the females. So the female viewers and listeners. And so thank you for joining us this evening. I will say this, you are welcome to come back on future episodes if and when the opportunity arises. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be honored.
How was it for you, by the way, before we get into your close, how was it for you being part of Real Men, Real Talk Live this evening?
Well, I'm amongst many men, but it's been a while since I've experienced great men, and truly I'm moved to tears. Jeff, I mean, I'm speechless, and that's not often the case. So all I would say is thank you for the work that you all put in, the way you show up. Like I said, it's been a while since I felt each and every one of you. I felt your stories, your courage, your vulnerability, your young self, Josh, Jay, your old self. And I'm just so privileged and honored to know that my boys, I have 2 teenage boys that I'm raising, can grow into beautiful, productive men that are sacred in this world. And I honor you, and I will do everything to the last day of my life to stand and fight for the beautiful masculine. I know the women have it, and the reason why I know the women have it is because we are we are able to access all these emotions and these beautiful things. And I'm just full of gratitude for this moment. And thank you for asking me. I got a text yesterday with Josh asking me, and I was like, can you tell me more, Josh? But in my mind, I said yes already, because I know that when the universe presents something to me, there's always a yes. So I think my message to everyone would be, say yes when you mean it and you feel it, and say no when you mean it and feel it, and really honor yourself. And I wrote a quote down that I think is a little bit appropriate for today, and it's, be like water, my dear. Really kind of flow in life and be one with the universe, so that you can participate in the energy of healing, because our world so craves it. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I will be more than happy to come back and share space with you.
Thank you.
Beautiful, Ozzie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evis love. Evis,
Wow.
how do you make sense of any of this? This is so gold that we dropped here tonight. Can you break this down for us in simple Evis love terms?
I don't think there's such thing, Jay Roth, the man.
I know. Simple, not easy.
Yeah, simple, not easy, my brother. But yeah, how can I piggyback on those beautiful last takeaways for us all, brothers and sisters? And for all my brothers and sisters across the pond, as always, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the support that you give to us week in, week out. Just like Ozzie said, it's really a beautiful time of this cleansing through this water consciousness, from this beautiful flow of energy that each and all of us have the potential and ability to really absorb and embrace within our lives, whether we're masculine or whether we're female. Now, to finish up here, Jay, I really wanted to address, because, we slowly deviated and we pivoted off as we're doing at Real Men Real Talk Live. Why is this nice guy finishing last? And is it another program that we on at Real Men Real Talk Live have got to debunk? Is it another program out there that really puts us on one side or the other? I opened up, I talked about that. Experienced the bad guy. I've experienced the good guy. But now I walk straight. I walk straight down the path. And at the end of that path is my purpose. You see, many of the nice guys, many of us that I don't see, have the purpose. We don't have the why still. We aren't clear on what it is that we want out of this beautiful experience we call living as a human being. So we go through life being the nice guy, pleasing, just making other people around us feel good. But we forget about thyself. Does that make you bad? No. No, it doesn't make you bad to come back to thyself and be selfish. Come back to thyself. Understand your purpose. Understand your why. Understand your values. Understand your morals. So when we start walking down this path, straight down the center, it's just neutral. No good, no bad. It's neutral. It's 0 point energy, inner chi. Then we can start being compassionate. I call this the 5 co's, or let's go 6. The 5 co's. We can be co-passionate with other people around us. And let's not get this twisted again, my brothers and sisters. We've both got the feminine and masculine energy. So when we're able to be compassionate, we can then start coexisting with one another. We start coexisting with one another, we start to coexist with self. We communicate with each other. Then we start communicating to self. We start to connect. We start to come back online from all of these distractions, from all of this stuff and this toxicity that's been going on the planet from day one. And then, my brothers and sisters, I've said this week after week after week, we commit. We commit to that purpose, to that why. See, when we start to commit, we start to celebrate some of those codes that I've been talking about. Then, brothers, sisters, we start to ascend in this beautiful awakening that we've got down here on planet Earth. So on that note, my brothers and sisters, peace.
Wow.
Boom. Yes.
Can you sing me a lullaby tonight?
Did you just ask for a lullaby? Well, you asked the right guy, because Everest is known to be out in nature in the bush, as they say down under, and serenade people in lives. He sings.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, here we go, Jay. Come on, man. He's put me on the spot, Ozzie. He's put me
Just
on the
give us
spot.
one verse, F, for the ladies.
Oh, I'm trying to think. What's a song that we can talk
Bad
about?
boy.
Nice guy. Oh, here we go. Well, go on, Jeff. Go on, Jeff. Give me one.
Well, you could start singing. I don't know who did it or the band, and maybe somebody who's watching, but there is a song out there. I think it was Poison or one of those bands, Motley Crue, called No More Mr. Nice Guy.
There you go, brother. There you go.
It was one of those hair bands.
Bands. Nice.
From the 90s, 80s, 90s.
But before my time, Jeff. Right in my era, brother.
And I could hear the song in my head right now. I just don't know who did it.
Maybe Jeff can sing it.
No.
Come on, Jay. Come on, Jay. You've put it out there, man. What's a nice track?
Gary said it's Man Down Under. I don't know if that's accurate, if that's correct, or if that's just you she's talking about.
There you go.
But in any event, here's my closing thoughts are. It comes down to this. When I work with my coaching clients, a lot of times when they start out, they say, "Where do I start?" And my first response is start. And then they say, "Well, how do I do that?" And I say, show up and grow up. If you affirm that your picker is not so good, and you have a habit of attracting people in your life that are not serving you well, and you have dysfunctional, toxic relationships because of that, it's time to show up. It's time to show up for that you. It's time to show up for your younger self. It's time to stop accepting unacceptable behavior. And the only way to get there is to listen, ask questions when you're dating, when you're in courtship. Pay attention to the answers. And when you hear a caution, don't ignore it. Pay attention to it and accept that as the truth. You see, I agree with what we shared tonight, what we talked about tonight. As men and women, we both have the masculine and feminine within us. I didn't know how to turn on my feminine because I felt unsafe in my life. I lived in my masculine, and it didn't serve me over the long haul, and it didn't serve my relationships. The most important one being with myself. And it wasn't until I had the courage to start to really date myself, and get to really experience what it can feel like. Excuse me one sec. What it can feel like to give myself permission to express my feminine self through my words, through my tears, through my behavior, through my love. That I got to experience how incredibly beautiful it can feel like. as Eva said, to have that balance, that inner balance of self, to know when it's appropriate for me to show up and be sensitive and be let that feminine side ooze out from within. But it's also important to know when it's time for me to show up and be that man, show my masculine. It is about balance. There's only one way to get there in balance is through self-care and through healing those younger wounds, those traumas, those pivotal moments that impacted your life. And if you're carrying the greatest inheritance that's weighing you down in your life, which is the belief systems that your ancestors gifted to you, it's okay, with honor and love and respect, give it back to them in a ceremonial of some sort. And say, it's time for me to create me. It's time for me to create my own choices that are healthier for me. So I don't need to continue to repeat the same patterns that maybe my dad repeated or my mom repeated if I'm a female. But start to ask yourself the question, as Mary Kelly said earlier, who am I? And then date yourself to get to know who you are. Not who you've been, but who you are at your core, at your soul space. And when you find yourself and you come home to you, your life will be changed forever in the most beautiful way. Whether you're a man or you're a woman, it doesn't matter. We all want to come home. It's time for you to come home. You deserve it. Every single one of you, viewers and listeners. I speak from my heart. I didn't know it was possible in my own life to come home. I wouldn't want to be anyplace else, but right here, right now, home. I love you guys.
Beautiful, brother.
Thank you for being here tonight, Queen Ozzie. Yeah, I don't know, Ozzie. When was the last time you saw a man cry like this in the middle of at the end of a show? It's okay though. Not everybody's comfortable with it, but I know this. I know my co-hosts are comfortable with it because we've all been here. We've all done it at one point or another in this show, Real Men, Real Talk Live. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, viewers and listeners. We love you. You deserve it. We honor you. We respect you. But it's time for you to do that for you. And with that, we'll catch you next time on Real Men, Real Talk Live. Love you guys. Peace out.